shared with me, the FAA said the first tenet of drone flying is to respect the privacy of others. I do think because there's federal regulation, there's not a whole lot of state regulation. State laws that apply to drone usage. There's Senate Bill 330 from 2016 that prohibits drone operations from interfering with lawful hunting, trapping, and fishing. There's Senate Bill 670 prohibits drone pilots from using unmanned aircraft over correctional facilities. And then Administrative Code has some drone operation prohibitions in state parks. That's really it for state laws. There's only 5 local drone laws in the entire state. I pulled each one of those ordinances. 2 of them deal with getting authorization from their local airport administrator before operating a drone near their airport. City of Green Bay prohibits use of drones below an altitude of 400 feet at special city events. Chautauqua's Airport one. Greenfield prohibits certain operations, reckless operation, and tries to place reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions on drone use. And then the city of Hudson is the only one that really speaks to privacy. And if the town were to consider doing anything, I don't think it's necessary to state first off. However, if they do, I think that the prohibition found in the city of Hudson is something that the town could consider, and it reads, as provided in Wisconsin statute section 942.10, which is hereby adopted by reference, no person shall use a drone as defined in Wisconsin statute 175.55 sub 1 sub A with the intent to photograph, record, or otherwise observe an individual in a place or location where the individual has a reasonable expectation of privacy. The section does not apply to a law enforcement officer authorized to use a drone pursuant to section 175.55 sub 2. Long and short, we don't need one. If you want to do something, I think it needs to be tailored specifically to the right of privacy aspect of it. And with references to the other state statutes that the city of Hudson has referenced in their ordinance, I think it would pass muster with the FAA if they were to review it. That's the long and short of it.
How do you feel that you had that ordinance and a case came to our municipal court here? How would you deal with it? I mean,
I don't know if it ever would, because the chief already said he'd refer it to the FAA to investigate. Town should not have to litigate neighbor disputes.
And it seems like, except for Hudson, all the other ones were a specific application, over events or.
That was City of Green Bay.
And the state statutes over prisons or.
Hunting,
Special
interference
events.
with hunting.
That one had hunting?
No, one of the state.
Oh, okay, state one, yeah, because that's a fair chase.
No, all Hudson deals with is reasonable expectation of privacy.
Okay.
2 others dealt with their local airports and getting approval from their local airport administrator. I think it was Chautauqua and Outagamie County, like Appleton area.
So this is a very weird one. And
There's only 5 in the state.
Right, thoughts? Start with who you think generally?
I don't know, I think there's a lot of state, I don't think it's not as much of an issue with laws and regulations for that, or
Yeah.
government, FFA.
Well, and Hudson may not have even have needed their reasonable expectation of privacy ordinance if they are adopting by reference, chapter 942, which is one of the criminal chapters, which probably already deals with when there's an unlawful invasion of someone's personal property.
I just feel like there's a lot of ordinances, and if this isn't one that is subject, that this is a real major issue, not that it can't be, but no, I don't think it's gonna supersede anything, any of the laws that are already set in place. I think it's kind of what we're thinking.
But if we have a law that our chief isn't going to enforce and refer it to the FAA, then we should be using the federal laws that control the FAA.
Well, I think in part he's doing that because we don't have
Because we
anything
don't
of
have,
our
when
own.
we have one, then it would be.
Right, but is there a
I don't think
reason-
we need one.
But why do we need one
I
if
don't.
there's a federal law
That's what
that we should
that's what I
apply?
just said.
Is there a reason that we're not locally enforcing either the federal or the state law? Is that what I heard that you say?
Why would we go? I mean. you
Because
don't
what other
enforce-
law
We
enforcement
don't
is there?
enforce federal laws typically.
Part of that. I did hear, actually from John and Barney, that if you have one of these, if you have a license, right?
Yes. That-
You only need a license if you do it commercially.
There's rules that go with it?
So you can, I know you're pointing at me, so I'm,
So you
so is
talked
that,
the most about, but Barney also talked about
right? So you,
following the rules that exist in general.
drones under a certain size, you don't need a license, you're supposed to register them if you plan on flying them, in places that could be sort of questionable. Little tiny ones that kids get from Target, you don't have to do anything with, right? But
Right.
the bigger ones that are over, I forget what the size is, you can look it up online. You have to register them, and so yeah, they have all my information, and I have an ID that gets printed out and gets put on my drone, and so in the event that I crash it or if somebody finds it someplace, they know whose it is. But also, yeah, the app that you use that gets connected to the drone and the drone itself has so much onboard diagnostic stuff that it shows you literally everywhere you've been it's like a flight log of everything. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, and then in order to actually use it for real commercial services, you need to have what is almost the equivalent of a pilot's license. It's just a separate version of it, or an offshoot, a branch of a pilot's license, and then that covers licensed flyers. So you can have someone that's within visibility. It's kind of like a liquor license. Like you can have one person who has their drone pilot's license, and then a second licensed registered person that doesn't have the same pilot's license can fly in their iShot. And so
That makes sense to what you look at also.
Yes, exactly, it's not that, it's a matter of, we're following under rules and regulations of it, we have a 200-foot ceiling height minimum, 400 maximum, etc. I mean, I look good, but you can't look in windows from 200 feet up. I don't care who says you can, I can show you all videos from any house in
You
my
had
home.
15
You
feet
can't
above
see
Carlin
inside
guard,
windows.
jackass.
All right, we were, you said,
Well, should be a dumb question, but. it's
10
not.
years in jail,
So,
$10,000.
let's hypothetically say we got, created an
They
ordinance.
are hard on that.
So, our law enforcement can't enforce.
No, you buy a cheap truck and crash it into it.
Enforce
It's
it.
an accident.
How about they can't cite, they can't arrest?
if we had an ordinance, it would have to state how that would work. The dipset is, already is, state law and federal law already on it.
So if they broke federal or state law, then.
I would
If
think
we're
that-
going to do our own, there is case law, it's federal case law out there that does report that, local restrictions, basically governing general welfare, safety, those sort of issues, are not prohibited from being passed. But if any of our restrictions are greater than what the federal government allows, our ordinance is null and void.
So it's
Agreed.
pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, that last statement says that there's no point in having anything other than the federal, right, it's gonna be null and void.
Yeah. you
Well,
can't
if we're any
do-
stricter,
Any
yeah.
more strict.
Right.
That does fall into that safety and
And
there's a
wouldn't it be
well-being.
repetitive if it's not as, you know, if we're making it the same?
Well, if we say it's the same, you're just restating the obvious or the existing law.
Well, and I should clarify my last statement. The general welfare, the case that I was referring to says that laws traditionally related to state and local police power, including land use, zoning, privacy, trespass, and law enforcement operations, are generally not subject to federal regulation. So it makes a distinction between police powers and just ordinary town of East Troy general welfare type ordinance.
Okay.
Did you happen to look up any of the Michigan law that, Michigan was
I did
fighting?
not research Michigan law.
Because that's one of the things that they brought up and got shut down by the federal government.
Is it public
was,
comments?
The
Back
Supreme
then.
Court. Supreme Court.
Go ahead.
That was Supreme Court's case you brought up last month, I believe.
Yeah, so, exactly. That's.
Free for all.
Okay, I think, unless, some dire need comes up here, or there's actually some, rulings that occurred that make sense for us to do it, it's like, I don't know the point. So,
There's laws out there that we need to apply them, because we should.
yeah.
So Attorney Mills' recommendation is,
We don't need it.
Yeah, well, we don't have to table this thing indefinitely, we can just take no action on this. The agenda said discussing the possible drone ordinance, so unless we're gonna authorize Jim to go ahead and write one, we're just taking no action right here, that's what I'm saying.
So we're done with this then?
Yeah, we
Not
can,
gonna be
you can
able
just,
to-
you can just
No.
confirm your recommendation, quick find and no responses, you don't have to.
I was just asking, just a lot of that.
All right, let's move on, ordinance 2021-5.
It's an ordinance amending chapter 2.20 bylaws and rules of procedure for the town board. To read the town board of the town of East Troy, Walworth County, Wisconsin, does hereby ordain as follows. Section 2.20.020 sub 3 is amended to read: a special meeting may be called in writing by the chair or new language by a majority of the board with at least 24 hours notice. 2.20.030 sub 1 is amended to read: the chairperson and clerk shall be responsible for the preparation of the written agenda of the board, and the agenda items shall be provided to the clerk at least, new language, 3 business days prior to the meeting. 2.20.030 sub 5 is amended to read: a vice chairperson shall be elected by the board at the first meeting of the board after members have filed their oaths with the clerk or as soon as practicable. New language: the role of the vice chairperson is to act as the chairperson in the absence of the chairperson. 2.20.040 sub 1 sub H4 is amended to replace the reference to the fire district report to new language, East Troy Area Emergency Services District, ETA ESD report. 2.20.040 sub 1 sub H8 is amended to replace the reference to the airport committee report to new language, Communications Committee report. 2.20.050 sub 2 is amended to read: the agenda, along with appropriate attachments, shall be, new language, made available for each board member at least, new language, 2 business days before the meeting. Section 2.20.050 sub 4 is deleted in its entirety. 2.20.060 sub 1 is deleted in its entirety. 2.20.060 sub 5 is amended to read: The chairperson shall recognize the clerk, treasurer, town attorney, new language supervisors, or employee of the town at any time to speak on a matter under consideration. 2.20.060 sub 6 is amended to read, persons wishing to speak during the public comment section of the order of business, new language shall be recognized by the chairperson and may speak no longer than 3 minutes, new language, per public comment period, except with unanimous consent of the board. 2, all italicized language is new. Any section of this ordinance not modified by italicized language or identified for deletion remains unchanged. 3, this ordinance shall become effective upon its passage and publication as provided by law. Dated this 9th day of August, 2021.
I move we approve,
Second reading.
I move that we waive the second reading.
I second.
Motion to waive the second reading of ordinance 2021-5, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
I now
Against,
move,
opposed, okay.
I now move ordinance to approve ordinance number 2021-5, an ordinance amending chapter 2.20 bylaws and rules of procedure for the town board.
We have a motion to approve 2021-5, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Michelle, second. Under discussion, we'll make sure we're doing the right thing here. On the last change, 2020-06 sub 6, that's when we changed, must be recognized, I think, to shall. We have a very good example of the problem with this, back when Officer Knox wanted to speak, and he wanted to speak on closed session material and exit interview stuff. Of course, Robert's rule says nobody can speak unless recognized, which is a direct conflict with this when you know there's gonna be a problem. And again, the problem there was, Knox wanted to talk about, the exit interview stuff, which is closed session material. He was told no 3 times. He spoke anyway, to the record that he spoke, and he spoke outside of the steps. That's the problem. That material, which was supposed to be, closed session information, now it's said publicly, which means, we're gonna probably have a bunch of lawsuits because of that, okay? So by saying shall, that's saying under, like you said last month, discretion now
It's taken away.
It's taken away.
We have to
Is that what you want? I mean, if you're in a meeting and you know what's gonna be said and you know that's information.
But it's public comment, the
I
board's
don't-
not taking any action on it.
That's
That's true,
what we
that's-
agreed on last, when we
that's-
went through this.
That's why I wanted to discuss that. So you're saying that since there's no action on it, there's no damage then?
Well, there could be damage, but it's not damage caused by the town board.
Okay, that's what we need to
Right.
hear. And why is that? Because.
Because you're not taking any action on it. You can't have a open meeting and have a public comment section and then not recognize people when they wanna speak during public comment.
Regardless.
That would create a possible liability.
That was mentioned in the Wisconsin Towns
Oh, sure.
Association training.
Sure. And they also mentioned that.
Although we don't have to have them at all.
Right.
Public comment sections are required.
Yeah. Okay, and that's why I brought it up, because I had a lot of discussion on that before, that event. And all the legal advice was, no, don't do it, but if we have it in here, again, that's discretion is gone. I just wanna make sure, that anybody that's in that position.
Well, so if you take it a while away,
They
then
changed the
tentatively you can tell
ordinance,
anybody
that's
you
what
want,
I'm
not
saying.
that they can't speak, because you're the chairperson, right?
Well, you have to have a reason.
Cause I posted
Yeah.
something on Facebook.
If you don't have a reason,
Comments.
then I'm putting myself in peril. Or if you're in.
Right, but that's what I'm saying with Knox, and I understand why and how that all happened, because he was saying it's not about that, it's about something.
It just says you shall recognize them. You should know, probably within 15 to 30 seconds in, whether they're approaching an area that would be best for public comment. It doesn't say you can't interrupt them or redirect them or suggest to them something.
Could you,
Oh,
as
Sure.
legal counsel, you could. Okay, I'm okay with it then. I just wanna make sure that the total.
But they don't have to follow my advice either.
Yeah.
So you were saying you would rather have, You would rather it say, yes, you can just not
Well,
allow.
no, the language before, I think the word we changed was must to shall, very minor. The difference is, shall is, like Jim said, there is no discretion. You just do it.
But in that meeting of discussions, we agreed that it would be a bad idea not to let people speak.
Again, there's certain circumstances, I'm saying now that Jim is saying,
Okay.
I would pipe in.
I said you don't have to respond to a public comment.
True.
You just
We
say, okay,
usually don't.
thank you, next.
Yeah,
Right.
true,
We,
true.
we don't because it's not on the agenda.
Okay.
Typically, we don't.
Well, that's
And
right.
Gene brought up in the paragraph above that, regarding who you should recognize or who you shall recognize, do we need to add deputy clerk to that list in case
Or
it's
She's
a
an
Gene
employee.
employee?
She's an employee. She's
Oh,
covered.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
she's covered.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason we said that was there was a time when it was a problem. Okay,
And that was already shall, cause that's not italicized, I see, in the sub 5
That was already shall, but supervisors
was not.
was not.
Because someone refused to recognize in the past.
Can I ask a question?
okay, and again, that's why I brought it up, I want to make sure that we're
Question
clear.
after too.
Yeah, yeah,
Which ones were the ones that you were deleting and then, Can-
redundancies, there were like repeats,
okay,
yeah.
is that why all of them
It's
that
still
were?
in there, I mean, these other, they're still original ordinance, what we're changing here, they're saying what we're changing. The original ordinance is still in place, is that correct?
Except
He's
for
asking about sub.
050 sub 4 and 060 sub 1.
Yeah, yeah. But those are redundant, right, because they were mentioning the same people that were
Correct.
in there before, so,
I just couldn't remember which ones they were and I was looking at them, so I just wanted to know which ones
Okay.
they were.
okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, all right, any other comments before we vote? We good? Okay, on a motion to approve ordinance 2021-5, all in favor say aye. Aye, opposed? Zero. Okay, we're going to sign that one? Or this one? No?
Can I start reading the last one?
Yep.
Ordinance 2021-6, an ordinance of the town of East Troy, code amending the comprehensive plan and the land use classification for tax parcel number PA 3973000002. It reads, the town board of the town of East Troy does hereby ordain as follows. Whereas on September 24th, 2009, the town board adopted the multi-jurisdictional plan for Walworth County as it pertains to the town of East Troy as the town's comprehensive plan under section 66.1001 of the Wisconsin statutes, and subsequently adopted ordinance 2010-34, an ordinance adopting, quote, a comprehensive plan for the town of East Troy, colon, 2035, end quote, with an update for a 2050 comprehensive plan. And whereas the comprehensive plans referenced above were prepared in accordance with a public participation plan adopted by the town of East Troy Town Board on September 26, 2006, and whereas section 66.1001, sub 4, sub A of the Wisconsin statutes requires that future amendments to the comprehensive plan be carried out in accordance with a public participation plan adopted by the town board, designed to foster public participation in the amendment process. And whereas the town of East Troy Town Board adopted the public participation plan for amending the town's comprehensive plan in resolution 2010-4. And whereas the town of East Troy Planning Commission and town board will have to determine whether a requested rezone, conditional use request, or map amendment is consistent with the 2035 town land use plan and 2050 comprehensive plan update. And whereas the rezone applicant identified as the owner of the above referenced tax parcel number has filed an application and paid his and or her application and application fee. And the purpose of this ordinance is to adopt the map amendment to the 2035 land use plan and 2050 comprehensive plan update on the parcel referenced in the title above. And whereas the town planning commission has reviewed and considered a request to rezone said property from A4 agricultural related manufacturing, warehousing, and marketing with a conditional use for a slaughterhouse to a split zoning classification of B4 Highway Business District, and C2 and C4 is found in Exhibit A, attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference, and found that it is not contrary to the intended goals of the town of East Troy's comprehensive plan and 2050 update, as reflected in its resolution approving the same, attached as Exhibit B. And whereas the town of East Troy has duly noticed a public hearing on the proposed map amendment to the town comprehensive plan, and a public hearing was noticed and held on June 2nd, 2021, for the purpose of hearing citizen comments on the proposed zoning change pursuant to section 66.1001, sub 4, sub D, Wisconsin statutes. And whereas, in accordance with section 66.1001, sub 2 of the Wisconsin statutes, the amendment to the town comprehensive plan still includes and does not alter the requirement for the following 9 elements: issues and opportunities, land use, housing, transportation, utilities and community facilities, agricultural, natural, and cultural resources, economic development, intergovernmental cooperation, and implementation. And whereas the town board approved the town planning commission's approval of the resolution for the requested change at the August 9th, 2021 town board meeting. So you're doing this ordinance. Now therefore it is hereby ordered. 1. The town board of the town of East Troy, Walworth County, Wisconsin, does, by the enactment of this ordinance, formally amend the document titled Town of East Troy Comprehensive Plan 2035 and 2050 Comprehensive Plan Update pursuant to section 66.1001, sub 4, sub C, Wisconsin statutes, to approve the request to change the land classification of tax parcel number PA 3973000002 from A4 agricultural related manufacturing, warehousing, and marketing with a conditional use for a slaughterhouse to a split zoning classification of B4 Highway Business District, and C2 and C4 is found on Exhibit A. 2, that the town of East Troy comprehensive plan and land use map and the official map are hereby amended to reflect this change in zoning. 3, that the town clerk is directed to file a copy of this ordinance and all maps and other materials presented by the town of East Troy Planning Commission with all of the entities specified in section 66.1001, sub 4, sub B, and sub E Wisconsin statutes. 4, this ordinance shall be effective upon its passage and publication as may be required by law.
I move we waive the second reading of ordinance 2021-6.
There's motion and second to waive the second reading of ordinance 2021-6. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carried. 0. Okay. Motion to approve ordinance 2021-6.
I make a motion to approve ordinance 2021-6 and ordinance of the town of East Troy code amending the comprehensive plan and land use classification for tax parcel number PA 3973000002.
Okay, do we have a
Second.
Second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Chad? Sorry. Go ahead.
All opposed? 0.
Do you have the copy with the color map as the attached map? Yeah. That's the one Joe needs to sign.
Before I read all over it,
Yes.
it was just happening.
I saw you pick up your pen.
You want an old one? Study tonight?
The last item under return report, ordinance 2021-7. section 2.40.010 of the Town of East Troy Municipal Code, and it reads, the town board of the Town of East Troy, Walworth County, Wisconsin, is hereby ordained as follows. One, section 2.40.010 sub 4 is amended to replace the reference to East Troy Airport Committee representative to new language, communications committee representative or representatives. Two, all italicized language is new. Any section of this ordinance not modified by italicized language or identified for deletion remains unchanged. This ordinance shall become effective upon its passage and publication as provided by law.
I move we waive the second reading of ordinance number 2021-7.
Mary, is there a second? Michelle, second, any discussion? On the motion, all in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed? None.
I move we approve ordinance number 2021-7, an ordinance amending section 20.40.010 of the Town of East Troy Municipal Code.
Second.
just to clarify, it's section 2, not 20. Section 2, not 20, right?
Sorry,
The rating.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. All right, and, Michelle, you seconded?
Chad.
Chad second, okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.